Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bourbon and Boxing. I am your host, Jeff. Welcome to episode 11, baby, where we're going to break down this week's heavyweight fights. We got two big main cards going to start at 2 p.m. in the U.S., starting all the way over in Poland with our champ Usyk fighting. And then we're going to go into Big Baby Anderson fighting for the second time in 2 months, trying to establish his place in the top 10 heavyweights, baby. So let's get into last week's results. We're going to talk about some news, but of course, what's the show called, guys? Bourbon and Boxing, baby. And we don't start the show without a shot. This week, I was gonna hold this stuff off, this bourbon off for a couple weeks, but I couldn't help but pop the cherry on this bad boy. I just had to try it. It's a hometown bourbon. I'm from Newport, Kentucky. This bourbon is called New Rip. It is from Newport, Kentucky. Also, these guys are doing a hell of a job out there, man. Shout out to New Rip. That's what we're going to pop open today, baby. We're going to take a shot of this and we're going to get into the show. What I'm talking about. Popping the top. We're going to get this shot rolling and we're going to talk about these two big heavyweight fights. I will talk about the fight results from last week. I didn't watch much of the fights from last week, but I did watch the Dennis McCain fight. And I have to say, that was an iffy fight, guys. That guy could have lost that one. He might have come out with an L if that fight wouldn't have stopped in the 8th round. We might have seen Dennis McCain lose his first fight. But that fight was stopped. It was considered a majority draw with two of the judges calling it a draw. So that came down as a unified, a draw, not a unified, what the hell, but a draw overall. So anyways, man, let's get this show started. Once again, I'm your host, Jeff. Bourbon and Boxing, baby. Welcome, guys, to the show, episode 11. Kind of a big week. We got the champ back in the ring. We got Big Baby Anderson back in the ring. We've got quite a bit of news to talk about when it comes to boxing. We didn't have a big week last week, but we got a chance to see a couple of the young guys coming up. Like I said, Dennis McCain had a tough fight against, we'll figure out the guy's name as we go. But here we go, guys. Let's take this shot and get this show started, baby. Ooh. Once again, popping open some New Rip, man. It is from my hometown, Newport, Kentucky. I live in Ohio, born and raised right across the river in Cincinnati, Ohio, right over in Newport, Kentucky. But it's awesome to see a bourbon company right there in my hometown. My hometown is growing every day, man. It was the absolute hood when I was coming up. Ain't no lie about it. It was the hood. There wasn't nothing good in Newport, but now they are doing big things over there. Go check it out with the pavilion, the down on the river stuff that they got going on, the levee, all that cool stuff. And then you got the New Rip Distillery there. So that is always awesome to see your hometown kind of coming up. But anyways, guys, let's jump into the show. But before we do, let's thank one of our sponsors, Brown Family Construction. You can get all your information for them on Facebook, man. You can call them, contact them. Any kind of construction needs you have, Brown Family Construction can take care of it. Jason Brown is very professional. The company is very professional. In any remodeling indoors and outdoors, they can take care of, man. Hit Brown Family Construction up. And let's jump into our show, guys. All right, this last week you had a couple fights on there. I watched the Dennis McCain fight. How do I say this guy's last name? Let's see if I can get it right. Abutu, something like that. I don't know if I got that right. But that fight, man, Dennis McCain was just getting hit with big shot after big shot. Every time he come in and try to make, take control of the fight, or every time he would come in with combination, he just got countered all night by big shot after big shot. Around the 5th round, the two guys came in with a clash of heads, and bourbon burps, baby. But they came in with a clash of heads, went back. They looked at Dennis. He was okay. Let him fight a couple more rounds. The cut was pretty bad. The bleeding was pretty bad. So when the 8th round started, they stopped, took another look at Dennis, said, "Nah, there's no way this fight can continue." So they stopped the fight with an accidental headbutt. Went ahead and went to the cards because, as you know, when a fight stops after 4 rounds, they go to the card. Went to the card. One judge had it in favor of McCain. Two judges had a majority draw. That's what it. Honestly, I mean, it could have been. It was definitely a draw. McCain didn't get his ass kicked. He came out. He fought a good fight, but his opponent was really really tough, man. Hitting him with really really big counters. A great fight for a young guy like Dennis McCain. I said it was going to be a test for him. I told everybody that this was going to be his first big test to see where his level was at. Like I said, man, in boxing there is level, guys. 1 level, 2 level, 3 level, 4. You got to figure out where you're at, man. And that's what I like about Matchroom compared to Top Rank is they're going to test their guys early. They don't want to put all this investment into a guy if he's not the real deal. So they go ahead and they test their guys early. They see what they have and they put them up against young veteran guys after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights. They put them in there against guys that they should be in against to really kind of get them the rounds, test their experience, put them in the deep waters, see what they're made of, see how tough they are. You cannot say that for Top Rank, who I think does not develop guys at all. We'll get into that with the heavyweight fight that they have going on with Big Baby Anderson, who took a big step forward with Charles Martin, but I think he's taken a step back with the guy he's fighting this weekend. But anyways, man, that fight with McCain, definitely going to be a part 2 to that fight, no doubt in my mind. Those two guys are going to fight again, and hopefully McCain learns how to get in and stop those big-time counters. He was leaving himself open, dropping his guard the entire fight, man. You can't take big hits like that and think you're going to continue a good career. Getting countered the way he was being countered. So I would definitely like to see him go back to the drawing board. I think he can learn a lot from this. Like I've said a million times before, man, I really think when you're a young fighter, fights like this really, really, really help your career. They help you develop. They help you learn. They help you see what you're doing wrong and how you can fix that, man. So when you see a guy doing that, let's see how McCain reacts to this and goes back in and to the drawing board and redraws some things. Figure out what he was doing wrong to get hit with those big counters that he was being hit with all night. A couple of the other fights that were on there, I did not watch them, man. I didn't get a chance. I'm having this back and forth love affair with DAZN. I don't want to pay $24.99 and then have to pay pay-per-view to watch, which I don't watch the Jake Paul fight, but to show that they had Jake Paul fights on pay-per-view. So, my biggest thing with DAZN is I'm having a hard time paying $25 a month and then having to pay for pay-per-view fights also. All the good fights are on pay-per-view. $25 a month, I'm sorry, bro. That should definitely get me pay-per-view and all that, man. No other Top Rank, nobody. Showtime, I pay $10.99 for Showtime, and that's all I pay. And I get my fights. Of course, they have pay-per-view, but I'm not paying $25 a month for it. That's the issue I have with DAZN. DAZN, lower your prices, bro. That shit is nuts. You don't have enough big fights for me to want to pay $25 a month. Although I do miss like the OTX and stuff like that that's going on there tonight. But like I said, man, let's get to last week's results. Like I said, I didn't watch a few of those fights because they were on DAZN, and I just happened to drop my subscription to them. Love affair, man. I want the boxing. But I don't want to pay $25 a month. That exceeds everything I have. I mean, hell, combined, Peacock, Paramount, all that barely costs me $25 a month. So to pay for one streaming network $25 a month, it's hard to justify it to my wife. So, but last week you had Yaffe beat Tommy Frank, and Bravo beat Madeira, and of course I just talked about the Dennis McCain fight against Baluta. Sorry, I butchered that guy's name. Something terrible. You know what I mean? But those were the fights over the weekend. I can't really tell you the results of them, what I thought about them when I didn't watch them. Like I said, having that love affair with DAZN can be an issue when you want your boxing, but you don't want to pay $25 a month for garbage-ass fights. Don't mean to say garbage. garbage fights, but it is what it is. Hey, we're gonna get into breaking down the heavyweight fights this week. Of course, we're gonna talk about the champ right now, Usyk going out fighting Tobias, however you pronounce this guy's name, and is this a stay busy fight for Usyk? I definitely say so. He's trying to buy his time, hoping that Fury will come along and that they can make that fight happen. But for now, I think that Tobias is more of a mystery for me. I know he beat Parker, but I've never been super impressed with Parker, so I can't judge the guy off that. I don't know a lot about him. I haven't watched him fight a lot. I know he's got some power and he can be a threat, but I don't think he's going to be a threat to Usyk, who is just a natural boxer. The smaller guy who's going to be able to move around a little bit more, keep his distance, stay out of the way of that big punch from Dubai, and he's just going to probably outbox this guy. And then eventually, I think he knocks him out in the later rounds, gets a TKO or a KO, possibly a stoppage in the later rounds of that fight. Uh, I'm glad to see Usyk stepping in the ring with an actual boxer. I'll give him 100% credit for that. Uh, compared to what Fury's doing right now out there fighting MMA guys as an active fighter. And I want to get a little bit more into that because, man, I'll tell you what, me and a guy at my work, young kid, man, I like him a lot. Cool young dude. Uh, he knows his MMA pretty well. But he was talking to me about Sean O'Malley crossing over and fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. And I'll tell you, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of MMA guys coming over to boxing because they're not advocates for boxing. They're not here advocating the sport. They're not here to benefit the sport or grow the sport. They're here to only get the money out of boxing that they can't get from the MMA. And I can't blame those guys for trying to get a payday. More power to them, man. Get your payday. But I think boxing needs to stop all that nonsense. They need to make a rule, put a rule in place that if you are an active fighter, you cannot go making fights outside of boxing when there's guys out there waiting in line to have a chance at your belt or have a chance to fight you. So when you're going and fighting a nonsense fight that absolutely has no benefit to boxing like MMA, fighting an MMA, guys, nothing comes from that. Oh, yeah, you beat Conor McGregor and you put it on your record. Like, really, Floyd Mayweather, like, all the great fights you've had, you are one of the greats. But Conor McGregor, nobody's going to look at that and be like, oh, that was a tough fight for him. I can't believe he won that one. No, everybody knew you were going to win. When it comes to the MMA guys coming in, boxing obviously has that advantage. But I think if you have a committee, a proper committee, you need to make a rule that says if you're an active fighter, you can't take exhibition fights. You can't take MMA fights against guys who aren't, licensed to fight in boxing. And it's, like I said, especially when you have guys out there waiting to fight you for the belt or to move up in rankings and stuff like that. So I think, Sean O'Malley, great fighter. Watched him fight last weekend. Hell of a fighter, man. But I don't want to see him in boxing. I don't want to see a Gervonta Tank Davis versus Sean O'Malley fight. I have no interest in that whatsoever. Just like I have no interest in the Fury versus Ngannou fight. I have no interest in that fight whatsoever. Only because of the fact that Fury is an active fighter holding a belt in boxing. And right now, we as boxing fans are waiting for a unified heavyweight fight. And this, excuse my language, this son of a bitch is out there fighting an MMA guy. And it has nothing to do with boxing. It's not like, oh, Ngannou is going to win the belt and then he'll go fight Usyk if he wins. No, there's no belt on the line. There's no significance to this fight. There's nothing to this fight that's going to mean a damn thing to boxing. It's a waste of time. It is a complete waste of time. It's a payday for these guys. Great, you're getting a payday, but you're wasting boxing time. You're wasting boxing fans' time with shit like this. And that's where I think, like, that's where I've been really kind of salty at boxing, that they didn't take some kind of action. Like, if you make an example out of somebody, it sends a message to everybody else. For example, if they would have taken Fury's belt away the minute he made that fight and said, look, you are a champion. This fight means nothing. You're not putting your belt on the line. This fight means nothing. You are an active fighter. If they would have taken the proper steps to strip him of his belt, send a message to the rest of the boxing world, this is not acceptable. All right? When you are an active fighter, taking exhibition fights should not even be an option. And that's where I really think boxing needs to step in, make a rule with this. I don't fault anybody for trying to get a payday, but these MMA guys coming over only have one thing in mind, and that's to make money for themselves. They're not here to advocate the sport of boxing. As much as I am not a Jake Paul fan, I can't say that he doesn't advocate boxing, that he's not an advocate for boxing. He is. He's out there. He's getting people who never even wanted to look at boxing to look at boxing, even if it's YouTube boxing. But he may get, if there's a million of those guys watching him, even if 100,000 of those guys start watching boxing, that's pretty good. That's advocating the sport. You're not just trying to make money for yourself. And trust me, he got in the sport to make money for himself, but he seems to be advocating as he's doing. He's just not taking the money and running. He's actually advocating the sport. He's out there talking about it. He's trying to get, he's signing contracts with fighters like, Amanda Serrano, and he's making them big paydays, all that kind of stuff. He's an advocate for the sport of boxing, and you cannot fault him for that, even if his fights are garbage. You can't fault him. He's an advocate for the sport. He's out there spreading boxing and trying to bring good attention onto boxing. So as much as I don't like him, at least he's doing that. These MMA guys aren't doing that. They have no intention of doing it, right? They just want to come in, make a payday, jump ship, and be Conor McGregor and fight one time, 2 times, I think, since that Floyd Mayweather fight, and he's now fat and happy. He made $100 million. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you fight to make money, right? I mean, a lot of these guys, they come from poverty. I came from poverty. You know what I mean? So when you're going into fighting, it's what you know. It's what you're good at, right? So you don't know much else. You know one way to get yourself out of that poverty situation, to get yourself from poor to middle class to rich. And if that's what you know, then that's what you use, okay? Fighting. And that's what these guys fight for, is to make money. So I can't fault anybody for making money, but I think boxing needs to just say, hey, if you want to fight Floyd Mayweather, more power to you. He's not an active fighter. If a guy's retired and you want to fight him, more power. He's not an active fighter. It's not going to be a sanctioned fight. We don't need to sanction it and waste boxing's time with it. All right. But as far as active guys, you got to make a rule and put a stop to this at some point. I don't want to see it. It's the same result over and over and over. These guys in the MMA going, I'm going to go beat Gervonta Tank Davis, Sean O'Malley. I respect you, dude. You're a hell of a fighter. You would wipe the floor with my ass. Not going to deny that. You are an amazing fighter. But boxing is a different sport, man. It's about moving your head, your feet, your footwork, your head movement, your body language. And there's so much to learn that there's no way, like in Ngannou, I don't care if Mike Tyson is training in Ngannou. He's not going to learn the sport of boxing in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, a year. These guys that are in boxing have been training since they were kids. They've been involved in it, doing events since they were 8, 9, 10 years old. Most of these guys, even the guys that got involved later, got involved when they were 16, 17, 18 years old, and they perfected the years of perfecting the sport. Because there's so much to boxing than just, people think you just get in there in the middle of the ring and 2 guys throw hands. There is way more to it, man. It's so much more of a technical sport. And I don't take nothing against MMA because I don't know that sport. And I know there's hard work put into it. These guys train, and it's a different sport, just completely different animal than boxing. So never am I downing MMA. But it's just like if a boxer stepped into the octagon with 3 months of training or 6 months of training. I don't expect that guy is going to beat an MMA guy who's been doing it his whole life. All right, like that's just I don't think what I mean. Uh, I think the same result happens with boxers. 90% of them are going to lose. 100% are going to lose. I say 90% because we watched Clarissa Shields win an MMA fight, a couple of MMA fights. She's back in the MMA with the PFL, but she's got some MMA fights scheduled for, I think, later this year or into next year. But like I said, man, without getting too much off track like I seem to do sometimes, I'll get back on track with my heavyweight fight with Usyk fighting Dubai. Tobias, like I said, I think that's going to be a late round knockout for Usyk, who's going to outbox him. Like I said, Dubai is more of a mystery to me. I haven't watched much of his fights or seen exactly what he's capable of. I know he has power. He beat Joseph Parker, but I'm not impressed with Joseph Parker, guys. Not at all. Never have I been impressed with that guy. He is in the top 10 for heavyweights, and I just don't see it. Maybe that's just how weak the division is that guy can make the top 10. I don't see him as a top 10. But anyways, let's get into that fight's going to start at about 2 o'clock. I think that card is going to start around 2 p.m. in the U.S. on ESPN+. Plus, the Usyk versus Dubai card, not pay-per-view. Once again, guys, come on, man. Top Rank is out here giving you top fights for free, man. $5.99 a month. I think I pay for ESPN Plus, and I'm gonna get the Usyk and Dubai fight for free. If that was on DAZN, that would have cost me $70 fucking dollars on top of my $25 subscription fee, bro. Get your shit together, DAZN. Seriously, bro, get your shit together. You guys ran your whole platform on, we're not going to have pay-per-view, man. We're going to give you the best fights for one monthly subscription, which was $19.99 a month. Now it's $25 a month. And I'm supposed to pay for pay-per-view fights. Fuck off, dude. Seriously, that's some bullshit. In my opinion. Seriously, DAZN, you're a fucking con artist. I'm sorry. Excuse my language. I'm going off on DAZN right now. I'm going to back up a little bit, guys. But like I said, going into the nightcap, you're going to have Big Baby Anderson. He is going up. Who's the guy he is fighting? I feel like it's a cab driver. The guy has like 6 losses on his record. And to be honest with you, I don't seem like it's going to be that tough of a challenge like he had last time against Charles Martin, who was a fill-in guy. Let's not forget Charles Martin was a fill-in. So that was kind of maybe that's what caught Jaron Anderson off guard with that fight. But he's going to be fighting Radunko. It seems like he's probably like a Russian or whatever fighter. But that fight, that's going to be on ESPN. Also, you'll be able to catch that on ESPN, ESPN Plus. That's going to be more of the nightcap fight. Looks like that's going to start around 7:30 p.m. The start time on that card. Which will be, I'm interested in seeing if Big Baby Anderson goes in and fixes the flaws that he had previously, to where the step, I've mentioned this several times, the step back defense I'm not a fan of, and then him stopping and looking at the clock in the middle of a fight got him caught several times with a veteran fighter like Martin last time. Put him in danger in the 6th round when he got caught with that overhand with the step back. And I thought it's only a matter of time before big-time fighters like Jaron Anderson is in my top 10 right now, heavyweight-wise. He is in my top 10, but there's things he has to fix. If he comes in, he's continuing to do that step back, or not the step back, the lean back defense. If he continues that, and I see him looking at the clock, then I have to question his trainer. Not as much as him as his trainer, continuing not to fix those flaws. That is going to hurt him down the road against big-time heavyweights. Fury, Usyk, any of those guys, Joyce, Zhang, Tobias, any of these big guys, even Parker, they're going to catch that. They're going to catch you on that that lean back, and they're going to knock you out with it. So I'm hoping to see him fix that coming in. And you have a pretty good card there. Also, I haven't looked at the Usyk versus Tobias card, but on the Anderson card, you're going to get Nico Ali Wash, and you're also going to get Abdullah Mason. And I'm just praying to God that Top Rank has not put these guys in with a bunch of cab drivers like they like to do. Last time I got to see Abdullah Mason, I told everybody about this guy. Like, oh, you got to watch this guy. And then they put him in there against a cab driver, for God's sakes. When I say that, literally, like they walked outside and they saw the first motherfucker driving a cab. And they said, hey, you, come here. You want to fight? You want to fight an experienced, young, up-and-coming fighter? Oh, yeah, sure. Why not? It's a payday. That's what, come on, Top Rank, dude. Do me a favor. Stop babying these guys. I know you want to build them up and build that name and make everybody think they're, oh man, this guy's the most amazing thing in the world. But if you're not testing them, what are you doing for them? Big Baby Anderson got his first test in his entire career against Charles Martin. And instead of stepping forward 2 months later, he's going to step backwards with his opponent tomorrow, who is not as good as Charles Martin. And will probably be an easy fight for Anderson. It's almost like Top Rank needs to build his name back up, get people thinking knockout with this guy, get people thinking, oh man, oh, here's the next big heavyweight. He can be if you manage to put him in the right positions and get him fighting top talent. Don't take a step back after fighting a good name like Charles Martin and taking a step back with the guy he's fighting now. So that's my issue with Top Rank. Nico Ali Wash, he got tested a little bit in his last fight, which I think was a draw. I don't know if that's the same guy he's fighting tomorrow, but we'll see. Nico is Muhammad Ali's grandson. So, I think Top Rank really wants to build him up as his he's the next Muhammad Ali, but he's not, guys. Trust me, he's not. He is good, but he's not his grandfather in any way, shape, and form. And like I said, Top Rank doesn't do their guys any justice by continuing to put them in there with cab drivers, guys. Develop these guys the right way. If you're not learning from every fight, then it's a pointless fight, man. It really is. If you're not learning something that you can take back to the drawing board and say, we need to fix this, we need to fix that, we did this good, we did that great, you got to be able to narrow it down to improve your fighter. That's truly what I believe, as a spectator in the sport. Yeah, I love this sport, but whatever. But like I said, these are the fights on the schedule tomorrow, man. I want to get into a little bit of boxing news for you guys. Let's get into what I heard early in the week about the Baumgardner situation. The drug test situation for her is not good. It's kind of conclusive that she has failed for a substance. Her previous opponent has come out and pretty much been on the kind of going after Baumgardner about it. And then I heard the weirdest thing, which somebody was saying that Baumgardner's contract is coming up with Matchroom, and that she was going to sign with Jake Paul. Frank Warren is claiming that maybe Top Rank has messed with her DT because it went to Top Rank or Matchroom. It went directly to Matchroom. The results did, which is kind of weird. They say. I don't know much about all that stuff, but they say that's not normal. It usually doesn't go to the company itself. But Frank Warren is claiming that, hey, her contract is up with Matchroom, and she already has made it clear that she's going to go sign with Jake Paul. So, it makes sense. You go sign with Jake Paul, that Amanda Serrano fight happens 100% for sure. That fight would have happened if she signs with Jake Paul's company. But that's the news there. Now, how much do I buy into that? I don't know, man. Boxing is a crazy sport. And do I put it past any company that has that type of power? Matchroom, Top Rank, Showtime, PBC, all these companies. Sky Sports, they have the ability, they have the power to control a situation that they want to. Goodness gracious, bourbon burps. But let's continue with, like I said, but this isn't good for Boomgardner regardless. We just saw a guy, I can't remember the fighter's name. He got a 4-year suspension, okay, for failing a drug test. Now, this is over in Europe. Now, they're claiming that over here in the States, it's not going to be as significant. She might miss a year and then be back within 6 months, actually. In my opinion, man, if it is steroids, and I'm not going to lie, Boomgardner blew up, it seems like overnight. She was fit. I'm not going to put that, when she went and fought Terry, I can't remember her last name, Terry something. When she knocked her out, that's when the attention came on her. She was fit, but man, when I saw her at the Shields fight, Clarissa Shields fight, she was just like she flexed, bam, and she was huge, man. Like she was huge, like, and I immediately said she's gonna get tested. Like, you can't look like that, and like you're gonna get tested. And then she failed this test. Not good for her, man. I'm a huge fan of Boomgardner, so I hope in some way that even if she is guilty of this, hey, we all make mistakes in life. Nobody is perfect, man. That's a fact. So just go back to the drawing board, do what you need to do as a fighter, and then come back even stronger. And it sucks if you did fail because that takes a lot away from me. As far as the Serrano fight that could have happened, that's off the table now. Her career is going to be in limbo. She's going to have to do a lot of rebuilding to get back to where she's at now. And I'm really, 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 really surprised that Michaela Mayer hasn't had something to say about this. Losing to Boomgardner in a situation where she's probably been doing the steroid situation for a while now. So more than likely, she was dirty in that fight also. So I'm really surprised Michaela Mayer hasn't come forward and really talked about this situation and saying, hey, I lost my belt to her. What's up? But she hasn't. She's been quiet. So maybe kudos to her. What the hell? Goddamn spiders coming out of fucking nowhere. But anyways, man, a few other news, man. The Canelo undercard has been released, and I'm gonna tell you right now, guys, the undercard for the Canelo fight is absolutely impressive, man. They put up a hell of a card for that fight. Like I think I reported yesterday that Ugas and Barros was gonna fight, and then I looked at the undercard again. It was finalized today, and I'm telling you what, guys, it's going to be worth every penny that you might spend on that fight, man. Let me scroll down here and check it out. Here it goes. Undercard is official on that. Like I said, the Ugas versus Barros, and then I know Lupin versus Ramos is going to be on there. Hell of a card, and then we got another couple, young guys. Elijah Garcia versus Armando Resendez. They'll be squaring off. That's what's going to start it out with those guys. So, man, a hell of a card for the Canelo Charlo fight. They're really trying to build this fight. So we're going to get a great undercard with that one. Super impressed with that, guys. Was glad to see that they made that card September 30th, which, I'm going to also rep New Rip on that fight. They gave me some merch. I'm going to wear their merch. Like I said, I'm rocking their bourbon tonight. I couldn't help but pop the cherry on it and try it out. I do like it. I am a fan of it. It is pretty strong. It's 50%. They've got even stronger stuff out there that I've seen. It's 59%. They're really... the price is, it ranges about $50, $60. The new stuff that I saw was $64. I paid close to $50 for this one. But hey, sometimes good bourbon is worth it. And repping your hometown, Newport, Kentucky, baby. Shout out to my Newportans out there. You guys are awesome, man. But anyways, like I said, news like that going on this week. I talked about Bumgarner, talked about Canelo, the undercard on that. Uh, Also news. Come on, man. What's up with the Haney and I really thought, oh, Kambosa versus Loma was announced, and the day after it was announced, I even saw a post where Kambosa responded saying, "That's what I do, baby. I fight for titles." And they were saying the Kambosa versus Loma fight, and then come out the next day, and I want to say Al Heyman has said that that fight's not going to happen. He doesn't know where that came from, who brought that about, and who even decided to post that. Hey, this fight's happening, Kambosa versus Loma. And I was really confused by it because Shakur had posted just a month before that Loma had turned down a fight with him and said that the only fight he had interest in was to fight Haney again. So it really confused me to see that, okay, he's going to turn down the Shakur fight. So I thought, okay, he's going after the easier fighter. In Kambosa, he needs to get a win. Loma, in all honesty, if I'm Loma and that was my options, hey, you can fight Kambosa or you can fight Shakur Stevenson, I'm going to take the Kambosa fight, go grab a quick belt, get your name back out there a little bit, get a win under your belt because I think he beats the brakes off of Kambosa. I don't even think that's a good fight. I've said it before. Kambosa is this decade's Buster Douglas. No disrespect to him, but it is what it is, bro. You had your 15 minutes of fame. You were out there. You made your rounds. You lost your belts. You shouldn't have been champ, in my opinion. But that's why I call him the Buster Douglas. But I think Loma, I looked at that and thought, man, Loma's going to beat the brakes off him. But then Al Heyman comes out and says, no, that's not the case. That fight is not happening. I don't even know how it was reported to happen or who ran with this story or whatever, but that fight's not going to happen. So maybe we get to see Shakur versus Loma or Shakur versus Tank or Shakur versus Navarrete. I'd love to see Shakur versus Navarrete. Out of all three of those fights, honestly, I think Tank is not a good matchup for Shakur. I wouldn't take that fight if I was Shakur right now. Down the road, absolutely. The Loma fight, I would take if I was Shakur. And the Navarrete fight, if it was offered to me, I'd absolutely take that fight. Even though I think that's a tough fight for Shakur, man, to be honest with you. There's also a few other news items I want to get into, man. Off the top of my head, I cannot think about it. Can't think for the mind of me. What are some of the other topics I wanted to talk about today? See, that's why I don't like to start my bourbon early. I usually try to start my bourbon when I start the show, but when I take a couple shots beforehand, it puts me at a disadvantage where I forget shit, man. Like I talked about Bumgarner, I talked about the Canelo undercard, all that fun stuff, man. And I want to correct myself. I got it completely wrong. Sonny Edwards versus Bam Rodriguez will not be happening September 16th. Completely misheard that. That will be December 16th is when that fight will happen. December 16th. My bad on that. Was way off thinking I was going to get an awesome fight on my birthday. But it looks like my birthday weekend will not be so exciting. I think I'll get a good fight that weekend, but it's not going to be, Sonny Edwards and Bam Rodriguez fight. You know what I mean? So that was a mistake on my part. So I want to, correct myself on that. And we'll go into, what. Not much more boxing news, guys. Not much more of the show left, man. Of course, Tim Tszyu says he wants all the smoke. He wants that winner of the Charlo versus Canelo fight. I don't see that happening. I think Tim's got to still work his way up. I think he can get Charlo regardless of win or lose. Charlo comes back down, fights Tszyu, defends his belts against Tszyu. Gets his belt back from him, or he makes Tszyu the unified champion. I think that fight happens, and we also got news that Virgil Ortiz is going to be jumping up to 154, which makes sense, man. The kid was killing himself to make the 147 welterweight weight. He couldn't do it. He stuck in there as long as he could to try to make that weight. It was bad for him. Now, how he fares at 154, I don't know. Once again, this kid shows talent. I've watched him fight a few times. He is a really good fighter, but let's see. The 154 is a pretty loaded division, and it could be pretty scary if he doesn't come up there ready. There's some good talent up there, especially if Crawford moves up to 154, Spence moves up to 154. You're adding to Charlie Tazoo and the other guys that are up there right now. So that's going to be a monster of the division if they can add a Virgil Ortiz to that. Once again, another exciting division for boxing with loaded talent, man. But guys, like I said, I don't have much more to talk about on here right now. There's probably some things earlier in the week I wanted to do a show, but my AC was out and it was hotter than crap down here in this basement, so I was not trying to come down here and do a show. I wanted to do a boxing news show because there was quite a few things going on. Like I said, the Haney versus Prograis fight, they said it was going to happen. Now you're hearing that there's not even talks. They're hoping. It's on the hope whim. We hope it's going to happen. If I'm Haney, I think Haney made the comment that Lopez was not the guy at 140. And I would have to say that he's wrong on that. If he really thinks Regis Prograis is the guy at 140, he's highly mistaken. And I think that's a way of him ducking Lopez, downing to make it seem like, well, he's not the guy at 140. I want to go for the guy at 140. The guy at 140 is Lopez. If you're not fighting him, you're fighting Prograis to get the belt to go fight Lopez eventually in 2024. I think that fight happens in 2024. Anyways, good big fight. And I think at some point, Haney's going to just have to give up those belts at 135 and let the rest of those guys in that division fight for those belts. He needs to be at 140. I think it works better for him. No reason to hold those belts up, even though they have decided to hold the belts for him at this moment. But I think they should look further into that and say, hey, look, man, fight at 135. Or fight at 140. If you're fighting at 140, which possibly is going to be two fights. Say he goes beat Regis Prograis, he's fighting Regis for that belt that he has, and then he wants to fight Teo. Obviously, you're going to go after Teo to possibly unify that division. I don't know if Teo has the rest of the belts, but you go at him and a possible chance of unifying 140. So why hold up the 135 division for over a year if you have no intentions of really going back down and fighting in that division, unless he fights Prograis, drops back down, defends his belts against a Tank Davis, who should absolutely 100% be next in line to fight Haney. I love Shakur. I love all these other guys in the lightweight division, but the guy who should be in line next to fight Devin Haney or to fight for the belts is Tank Davis. He's the best guy in the 135 division, in my opinion. So I think he deserves that opportunity. He's definitely the number one in that division, in my opinion, to go after Haney and fight for those belts. So we'll see what happens there, what boxing decides to do. Right now, they're allowing him to put him on hold and go fight at 140, which was supposed to be against Regis. But now, if he doesn't have that fight planned, do you back off that and say, hey, look, you either need to make a fight here or at 140 within, a certain amount of time. We need to know what you're doing. So that's the deal with Devin Haney. And like I said, Hearns just, that's my issue with Eddie Hearns, guys. He's just out here selling fights that aren't happening. He's out there telling you that, Anthony Joshua versus Wilder is going to happen. He's out here telling you Devin Haney versus Prograis is going to happen. He's just out here selling fights that aren't going to happen, that aren't even scheduled to happen yet, guys. And that's one thing I hate more than anything. And that's the one thing with boxing, man, until it's on contract, until you have a date set, an actual date set, it's hard to buy some of the shit that these guys want to feed you about fights that are going to happen that you personally know aren't going to happen, right? And that's what I hate. Don't sell us a fight that's not in talks, especially if you're not talking to anybody. That's what aggravates me. But anyways, man, guys, thank you for joining me for another episode of Bourbon and Boxing. I am your host, Jeff. I got a little tipsy tonight, so my episode might be a little bit crazy. But we're going to do one more shot to end our show. Once again, we want to thank Brown Family Construction for supporting the show, showing us some love, being our first sponsors on the show. YouTube says I got to have 1 million views to get a sponsor, but guess what, baby? I'll go get my own sponsors, huh, man? I'm just playing, guys. Uh, don't want to piss YouTube off and they kick me off this shit. But anyways, man, thank you for joining me for another episode of Bourbon and Boxing. Also, check out my Facebook group, Bourbon and Boxing, where I post all the news, all the results throughout the week. And then also, don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, guys. And, I appreciate you. And to my 16 subscribers right now, thank you guys for subscribing to my channel. And thank you guys for tuning in. And this shot's for you guys. Thank you so much. And have a good night. Whoa. All right. Thank you guys.